How comfortable are you at shooting at something like ISO 3200? How about 6400? How about ISO 10,000? I know if you're anything like me, I wouldn't go above, let's say, ISO 400 without the fear of noise just riddling my image, to the point that noise reduction wasn't that great, and when I would go to reduce the noise, it would just blur the junk out of everything and I would lose all the detail. Hence, why staying at ISO 400 to maybe 800 was about where I would belong. That was about it. Anything higher than that, I just wouldn't do it, because I feared that I would have a horrible image when I went into post. Well, I was recently on a workshop with my buddy Josh Snow, and on that workshop we photographed the gorgeous Oregon coast with all of its calamity and danger, and then we went into more peaceful scenes like the coastal redwoods and found beautiful little banana slugs. Yeah, they're actually pretty cool. And macro opportunities of mushrooms, and probably one of the most amazing shots of a seagull. So between photographing the waves and photographing the banana slugs and the mushrooms in low light, we had to become pretty much experts very quickly at photographing at high ISOs. And let me just tell you, it doesn't take much to be an expert at it. You just have to do it. Okay. So the reason why I say this is because now in Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom, we have amazing noise reduction capabilities in here with the AI noise reduction that is in the details section of these raw processors. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. Noise reduction has come a long way. And now, when you're on location, there's almost nothing to fear about going to high ISOs. So let's take a look at this image right here. My kids actually told me it looks kind of like a xenomorph and not a wave, if you know what I'm talking about. Alien. It even looks like it has teeth. Oh, it's coming right for you. Anyway, let's zoom in here, and this is at ISO 3200, so not maybe the fastest ISO that I would go to these days, but pretty fast. And we look at this, you see the noise. Now, this noise is well beyond what we would call grain, in my opinion, and it actually becomes to the point of deteriorating the data in the image. So does that hold us back from using it? Absolutely not. In the details section, there's a button here called DeNoise. When we turn that on, it will go into DeNoise mode, and it's applying basically an AI adaptation of noise reduction to our image. But we can still use the other noise reduction area inside of Adobe Camera Raw to get expert noise reduction also. So let's wait maybe 2, 3, done. Seconds. Okay, and now we'll zoom in and we'll look at the difference. Okay, so here is the difference. So if we press P to preview, that's the before, and that's the after. What you'll notice is that even in these really small areas where we used to do noise reduction and we would blur that, it would pretty much be gone. Now we actually have that data and that detail there, which is really nice. But the other things that we need to concern ourselves with here are how much manual noise reduction are we going to need and how much sharpening are we going to need when we do this noise reduction. So let me just take all of this down, and this is going to be a lesson in noise reduction and sharpening. So, however, this is not all that I'm doing with this. If you'd like to join me on November 25th at 2 p.m. Central, I'll be doing a live event. If you sign up, you can watch the replay through that weekend, so you don't have anything to worry about there. This is something that interests you. If shooting at high ISOs is something that interests you, we're going to go in real deep. I'm going to compare noise reduction with a 24 megapixel camera and a 50 megapixel camera and see if there's any difference. I'm going to test the metal of this noise reduction and what you're going to have to do furthermore inside of Photoshop to really recover that detail. This is just going to be skimming the surface. If you'd like to join us, again, that's November 25th at 2 p.m. You can sign up in the registration link in the description below. Okay, so let's look at this. What I'm going to do, I've already done the AI noise reduction, and you do have some sliders here where you can go like this and go back and forth like this and get more or less out of it. I would recommend not necessarily going this high, because then you get this plastic kind of cartoon look to the image, and it's just not that great. So I would say maybe take this down just a little bit below 50, maybe around 40, 45, somewhere between 25 and 50. Obviously, if we go down here, it's not going to be doing anything at all in the noise reduction of our image. So as we move this up, just know that we're going to go a little higher, a little higher. I might not want to get this to the point where it reduces all of my noise. I just want this to reduce the heavy lifting of the noise. So maybe at about 35. Okay, so now we still have some noise here. I would also recommend doing manual noise reduction. And you might see that these have a little triangle here for the manual noise reduction. Open up that triangle, and inside these triangles open up these triangles because it'll give us all of the nitty-gritty details we need to reduce the noise in the image. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and increase the luminance and reduce that a little bit more like this, okay, like right about there. The thing is here, I feel like the AI noise reduction can be like a hammer, and it can hit pretty hard. So when I do the AI noise reduction and then I come in and I do my manual noise reduction, I can get some really nice, clean noise reduction. Notice how sharpening is all the way down. It's really difficult to do some noise reduction when you're also sharpening the image. As my wife would say, it's kind of like chewing Oreos while brushing your teeth. Okay, it's a really weird visual. She says that a lot of times. So with the detail here, let's just take a look at what that's going to provide us as we move that to the left and to the right. The detail, you might not see that it's doing much here, and the contrast, you might not see that it's doing much here. But we will want to reduce the color noise as well. And the color noise is going to happen in between the luminance noise here. So if you see the luminance noise, if we zoom in here, you can kind of see this right in here. Look at how as we move the color noise up, you see this kind of magenta coloring that's on the waves just kind of slowly disappears. I would not recommend taking this color slider much higher than this, because if you do, then the very small areas that you have color in your image, they'll just start to get blurred into each other, and you'll actually start to lose detail. Not a very good idea. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here on this wave, and now I'm going to need to apply some sharpening. One of the things that I would recommend is using the Alt or Option key when you are sharpening. Okay, if I move this over and I press Alt or Option while I move this over, you can see a black and white representation of my image. Here, we're going to want to move in real tight. Let's move into some detail area right here. If I press Alt or Option and I move this slider back and forth, you can see just how much sharpening is coming through based on the radius and the detail settings that are happening below. So if you're going to do noise reduction, you should do the sharpening at this level too. There used to be this old adage where people would say, you should only do your sharpening at the end of your workflow. You shouldn't do it at the beginning. You have to do your noise reduction first, then sharpening last. Dude, that is so old school. Kick that out of your head, okay? It doesn't really exist anymore. I like to mock people who like to throw always and never statements at me like that. So I'm going to increase this to the point where I start to see some detail and some data around that little smidgen of water right there. Okay, now on the radius, if we press Alt or Option and move this up, this is where you can see how sharpening can actually be detrimental to your image. Notice how as we press Alt or Option and we move this up, we see that there's this kind of white haze that's happening around those areas. That is beautiful for separating detail and data for us because it differentiates the area of high contrast to low contrast and kind of just adds this little white haze around it. This slider right here is the illusion of sharpness. Okay, so if we bring this up, we can make that illusion stronger. So I'll bring that right about right there. Now the detail, Alt or Option, and you'll see with this detail here is it's not really working on that individual line like we see right here with the radius. It's more working on the detail as a whole or the sharpness as a whole for the data that we have there. All right, so now we'll zoom out. And this is looking pretty good. If we zoom in here, we can almost see individual droplets. If I press P to preview this and turn this on and off, you'll notice that we aren't losing any of that beautiful data. See, 10 years ago, if we did noise reduction to this level, we would have lost these little white specks right here. Now, if you think that that's too much noise reduction, I probably agree with you, but I like to start heavy and then work my way backwards. So another trick I'm going to show you here is in the masking section. Most people only hit the Alt or Option key in that masking section because when they move this, they can see where the sharpening is going to be. Now you'll see that you have a black and white difference here. The black part is where sharpening is not going to be affecting, and the white part is where sharpening is going to be affecting. Now you'll notice that as I move this over, I'm going to want to get this to the point where most of the image is actually black, because the sharpening that I want to do here is really just going to be on the edge, on all of the edges in this image. So I'll move that just to about right there like that, and that looks pretty good. All right, so now let's take a look at this. If I zoom in here, okay, I'm going to press P for the preview button, and look at that. We almost lose all of this here because the noise is so strong. It almost looks like grains of sand on top of a print, doesn't it? Well, if we look at it now, we can actually see individual details in places that we were going to lose that with the noise that we currently had. Now, I will say, like I said, that this is probably a little bit too much noise reduction. I may have gone a little heavy-handed on my manual noise reduction with the AI noise reduction, but this is going to be a push and pull game to make sure you can get the right detail that you want here. And look at that. Wonderful. So we've got this wave, we've got a lot of that detail isolated, and it is looking wonderful. However, it is not necessarily as sharp as it possibly could be. There's still a little bit of this detail in this data that is missing from this image. And that is what I'm going to cover in that webinar in November 25th, where we take this a little bit further. For now, I just wanted you to see just how powerful and effective noise reduction can be at the raw level before we go into Photoshop and do more of our detail work. If you're interested in joining us in that live event, go ahead and click the link in the description below and get yourself registered. There is no need to be afraid to take your ISOs to a higher level now when we have AI noise reduction. And in that live event, I'll prove it to you with many different examples. I certainly hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. I like to take difficult things in Photoshop and make them seemingly simple so you can use them in your workflow today.